Are you curious about the root causes of your brain fog, anxiety, weight gain, poor sleep, or low energy, and how nutrition and lifestyle changes can help? Well, today I'm joined by Andrea Donsky, nutritionist, seven-time published menopause researcher, entrepreneur with 26 years in health and wellness, host of the Menopause Reimagined podcast, and author of the instant bestseller, Nourishing Menopause. We'll cover what's really happening in your body, why we feel different, nutrition and lifestyle changes that can help, and practical strategies made for perimenopause and menopause. So thanks, Andrea, for taking the time to answer a few of my questions. I know the women that I work with are going to find this really helpful, and myself. First off, Andrea, I'm 62 and I would describe myself as postmenopausal. And I feel like I read something that you said you don't like the term postmenopausal.
Like I wish there was menopause and perimenopause because postmenopause is a bit confusing because for a lot of women, when I speak to them or tell them that I'm working with women in perimenopause, they'll say, "Oh, I'm way past that. I'm postmenopause." And the thing is, I feel like the term is a bit dismissing. And also when when women are saying, "Oh, I'm way past it," and they think they're way past it, they may not focus on things that we really should be focusing on, like nutrition and lifestyle, supplements, exercise, mindset, like all of the things that are really important. So, yes, I wish there was just perimenopause and menopause, and we got rid of the term postmenopause
Mhm.
because now more than ever, we're going to live anywhere from a third to half our life in this stage of life, and we're more prone or susceptible to certain issues like
Mhm.
heart disease, osteoporosis, cognitive decline. So now more than ever, it's really important that we focus on the things that I
It
mentioned.
makes it sound like you're not in menopause anymore. I
Once
know.
we go into menopause, we're in it for the rest of our
Yeah,
life.
that makes so much sense. Well,
Yeah.
you found a surprising 103 symptoms, but most of us only know like two or three of them. So name some of the ones, some of the symptoms that would surprise us.
Yeah, so there's 103 plus symptoms according to our published research in the journal Menopause from December of 2024. Some of the lesser known but still common ones would be like itchy ears. So
Yeah.
somebody would be like, scratching their, it's like, and it's not on the
I
outside.
totally have that.
Yeah, so itchy ears, that's because as estrogen falls, estrogen helps to keep our skin moist and plump. And as it falls, it dries out our skin, including the mucous membranes in our ears, which can make it
Yeah.
more itchy. So, itchy ears, dry eyes, watery eyes, bad breath, BO in one or both armpits. Generally, women will say they have it worse in their left armpit than their right armpit. Phantom smells, that was a
Uh,
big one for me. So phantom smells are when you smell things that other people don't because it doesn't actually exist in your immediate
yeah.
environment. It was one of the first symptoms that I had, but I didn't know until years later when I was writing my book. And very common phantom smells, according to our research, we have a survey on phantom smells on our website. And the number one thing that women in perimenopause and menopause are smelling, but again, doesn't actually exist, is
Yeah.
something burning. So it could be
Ah.
campfire, cigarette smoke, cigar, overheated electronics, burnt toast, burnt coffee. Anything that's burning is the most common phantom smell.
Why do women gain weight in menopause even when they haven't changed anything?
Yeah, so there's a chapter. So in my book, Nourishing Menopause, Powerful Nutrition and Lifestyle Strategies to Feel Your Best, chapter 5 covers all the reasons. Well, there might be even more, but we covered 17 different reasons that we're gaining weight in perimenopause and menopause.
Mhm.
And, not to go through all of them, but just a couple of them are obviously hormone related. It could be that we're not actually eating enough food. That's a really big one. Hydration plays a role, sleep plays a role, stress plays a role. So there's so many reasons that we are gaining weight. And an important message that I do want to get across to women is that I don't want them to blame themselves because a lot of us, and including me, like back in 2016, when I didn't know what was happening to my body and I was gaining and losing weight, I would, eventually gain 20 pounds. I was doing the same thing I always did. I was exercising the same way I did before. I was eating the same way I did before, but yet nothing was working and I kept putting on the weight. So it's really important, ladies, that you understand there are a lot of other things at play here, and it's very little of it has to do with willpower. So there are things that we can do to help us lose the weight as we go into perimenopause and menopause, and I cover a lot of that's really the like not the basis of my book, but I cover a lot about nutrition and sleep and managing stress and exercise and mindset in there that all help you
Yeah.
to manage your weight and to thrive in this phase of life. But there are a lot of contributing factors to it that happen to us as our estrogen and progesterone levels fall.
What's the gut hormone connection that most women don't know about?
So I always say that so chapter 4 is all about gut health. And I always say that there are two main focuses that we really want to, too many things, the areas that we really want to focus on as we go into perimenopause and menopause: sleep and gut health, because and digestion, because all of that plays a big role. Both of those play a big role and can kind of exacerbate or trigger different things.
Hmm.
So as we go into perimenopause and menopause, for many women, their gut health or their digestion will shift and change. So maybe before you were able to eat certain foods and now they're, causing gas and bloating, or maybe you have more indigestion, or maybe you're more sensitive to foods than you were now than you were before. So relearning certain things, and I guess a lot of different things as we go into this phase of life, is really key. And understanding how your body processes certain foods, digests certain foods. How does it absorb? Like, are you actually what you're eating? Are you absorbing the nutrients as well as you did before? So
Hmm.
gut health plays a very big role because our gut and our brain are connected. And what's really interesting from the research that we have is that 9 out of 10 of the top 10 most common symptoms are actually brain health, mental health, and cognitive health related. So when what we eat, we know the vagus nerve, which is that two-way highway that connects our brain and to our gut. When one is upset, the other one is upset too. And when one is happy, the other one is happy too. So what we put into our body can actually affect us in so many different areas, including how we feel, our moods, etc.
Well, what about fiber? Are women getting enough? I'm imagine we don't.
So fiber is really important. And what research shows is that we're only getting about 50% of the fiber that we require. And in the book, I talk about getting 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. It's really important because fiber helps to move things along the colon. Fiber also helps to satiate us. It helps us absorb our nutrients. It helps to prevent certain issues, certain diseases like colon cancer. So it's really important that we get enough fiber in our daily routine. Also, we want to make sure that we're going to the bathroom at least once a day.
Hmm.
Fiber helps us to go to the bathroom at least once a day. And when going to the bathroom once a day, why is it important? Because it helps to get rid of things that our body no longer needs: digested food, metabolized hormones, certain things, that just need to come out. So it's really important that we get enough fiber so that we can go to the bathroom, for all the reasons I mentioned and more, but also so that our body's able to rid itself of things that it no longer needs on a daily
Yeah.
basis.
So if a woman over 45 cleaned up just one thing in her diet first, what would give her the fastest relief from symptoms?
It's very personal to each one of us. So, for example, like for someone like myself, certain foods can exacerbate certain symptoms. So, for me, if I have coffee, caffeine, or chocolate, it will exacerbate or trigger a hot flash or a night sweat. So, for me, but maybe it's something different for you. So, or alcohol, that's another thing that's really triggering for a lot of women. So, I think depending on what your symptoms are, depending on how you're feeling, we know that number one symptom of perimenopause and menopause is fatigue and exhaustion. So if there's something that you could do, that perhaps you're eating a lot of ultra processed foods. So I'm all about balance. I like the 80-20 rule. But if there's something that you're eating, for example, that could be triggering how you're feeling, then that food in particular would be the one that you want to look at minimizing or avoiding for a certain amount of time, especially if it's if it's doing something to help, if it's making you feel a certain way, or it's kind of triggering that symptom for you.
Yeah. Well, Andrea, do me a favor. Give me the definite or the difference between processed and ultra processed food, because I always get confused on that. Like, what's the difference between those two?
Well, so processed food, I mean, oil is processed, foods are processed, and that's why I like to say ultra processed
Yeah.
foods, because it can be confusing. So, I mean, many of us are still consuming processed foods because, I
Yeah.
mean, if you have olive oil, you're having avocado oil,
Right.
that can be processed, right? Ultra processed foods is to the point where nutrients are removed. It is so processed that companies are adding back nutrients to the foods that you're eating. And oftentimes, and the majority of the times, ultra processed foods also contain very high amounts of ultra processed sugar, as well as ultra processed ingredients like monosodium glutamate, or it might contain high fructose corn syrup, or these are or trans fats, like ingredients that we don't want to be putting into our body because it may lead to us not feeling so great.
Right.
So that would be so ultra processed would be to the point where it's actually changing, it's not even food anymore in most
Right.
cases.
Right. I mean,
And then they're
it's
adding
hard to stay
back.
away from processed food. I mean, like, because we're, like you said, we're
Right.
eating some of that, but I know a lot of times when I, talk to clients who go, "Well, I don't eat processed food." I'm like, I think it's so hard to, that's almost impossible. And that's coming right from the earth. Isn't that not correct?
Well, it is. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we really want to try and eat as much whole foods as we can, but it's not, it's really, it is, can be difficult to eat, like to avoid processed foods
Processed,
because
yeah.
food is processed in general. For me, it's about the ultra processing of the food where it's not even really considered food
Yeah.
anymore. And they're adding
Yeah.
all these, ingredients and chemical ingredients to it and preservatives and things
Right.
that our body doesn't know how to process.
Yeah.
So that's really the key of, and especially, and if you're not feeling great, and we know now the research shows, like I talk about it in the book, we know that eating ultra processed foods is not healthy for us. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody listening is surprised about that.
Right. Yeah.
So focusing on whole foods and minimally processed is probably the better way to say it. Those should, if those contain or make up the majority of your diet, then chances are you're going to feel good because those are foods that your body knows how to handle and digest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, why is undereating one of the biggest mistakes that midlife women make? You talk about
So
overeating all the time, but undereating.
yeah, so it's very important because for many women, they'll say to me, and because weight gain, so let me just kind of preface it with some statistics and some of my research. So we know, according to my published research, that about 50% of women gain weight in perimenopause and menopause. We also know that when it comes to quality of life, weight gain is the number two or the second most impacting symptom on women when it comes to quality of life. And women will come up to me and they'll say to me, "Oh, Andrea, like I don't understand." And by the way, I thought the same thing. Like, I don't understand. Why am I putting on weight? Because I'm eating the same, I'm exercising the same as I mentioned before, but now I'm even eating less and I'm still gaining weight. And the thing is, when we don't eat enough, our body goes into conservation mode and it'll think that it's not getting food or more food. So it'll hold on to the fat that it already has. It also stresses our body. So it may lead to inflammation. It may lead to other things that will make our body hold on to things, or maybe we might get more bloated or creating that inflammation in the body. It'll just hold on to things that'll prevent us from seeing that weight loss or seeing that loss of whatever. Like when you get on the scale, you might feel that it's not taking anything off, and that also you might be more bloated. So it kind of leads to that cascade of weight gain, but it may not be fat gain, but it might be weight gain because of other things that are going on, right? It could be water and
Right.
the inflammation that's happening in the body.
Yeah. So you can't just go by the scale either, right?
Well, exactly.
Yeah. So everyone's talking about protein right now. That's all we open Instagram as protein. Is it I think like it's in everything. How much do women really need? And tips for those that find it difficult to eat enough? Because I'm one of those people. I by the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I didn't eat enough protein.
So that becomes very overwhelming for people, I think, and especially for women. I remember when I was writing the book, chapter 11, I was like, it's confusing me. And if it's confusing me and I'm a nutritionist for 20 years, it's going to confuse other people too. And what I did with Lisa Tsakos, who wrote the book with me, she's a practicing nutritionist clinician for 30 years. What we looked at the research, and there isn't a ton of research yet. It's happening, more and more is coming out, but there isn't like a ton of the research for women in menopause of how much protein we should be eating. So we looked at all the different numbers. We looked at, the N of ones, which was our own me search. I love that term. I heard it recently. We looked at her clients and how she helps women as well. We looked at kind of what other experts were saying, and we came up with a formula that we feel is very reasonable. So if you're 140 pounds or less, look to get 20 to 25 grams of protein a day per meal, assuming 3 meals a day. That's your starting point. If you're 140 pounds or more, it's 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal, assuming 3 meals a day. And then you add on top of that according to your needs. What is your body size? How much are you exercising? What are your goals? Are you on a GLP-1? Like there are things that might require you to have more protein, but we gave the starting point of what we feel is the fair starting point for everyone. And also to be mindful, when you get too much of it as well, it can turn to fat. So it's really finding that amount that is for your specific body and what you need, what your protein requirements are.
Mhm. Do you have any like simple tips of like how to sneak it into foods without like having so much volume? Because that's what I find women find it challenging for me is they just say, I can't eat that much, Dallas. I can't eat it much.
Well, I mean, there's some great foods that, like, for example, like if you like cottage cheese or if you eat dairy, so cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, those are all good sources.
Yeah.
I personally love a protein powder. Like I'll add it into some things that I'm baking with. I'll have it on a shake. You know, if I'm making myself eggs, I'll add some extra protein to it depending on what I'm having. So there are ways to sneak it in that you can put it into your food. There's also now like you can get protein, like clear protein that have no taste or some of the
Yeah.
flavor added into your water. Like there's ways to do it that you don't have to add all of that volume like you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. That's good. That's helpful. So low libido is something women joke about but rarely talk about honestly. What is actually happening in the body and why do so many of us just assume it's something that we have to accept? Because I feel like I don't think we hear women talk about this often enough. I
So
think it's
low
a
libido,
common problem.
it's so common. So actually, I'm published in, again, the journal Menopause on low libido. I teamed up with Dr. James Simon, who's a medical doctor and specializes in this, and then also Marcella Hill from Wake Her Up. And what we found is that 91% of women have a lower libido now that they're in perimenopause and menopause, and 66% of women are having trouble with orgasms. And basically, what we looked at was what are the different reasons that are they talking to people? What are some advice that they're getting? And what I believe if your libido is lower than it was before, there are some things that I would recommend speaking to your doctor about, like going to get your thyroid checked. I call it the low-hanging fruit. And there's a lot of reasons. It's complex, right? Like I've actually done several podcasts. I've interviewed Dr. Faye Weisberg. I've interviewed Dr. James Simon on this. I have several podcast episodes when it comes to sexual health and libido, and they give excellent advice. The first place I would start is really to speak to your doctor about getting your thyroid checked, because if your thyroid is low and you have hypothyroidism, one of the side effects or symptoms can be a low libido. And then also we're exhausted. Like as I mentioned before, right? It's the number one symptom. Go get your vitamin D levels checked, your ferritin, your B12. Perhaps these are low-hanging fruit that may be contributing to that low desire for sexual health. So there's a lot of things that are at play here, including mindset, including for we talked about weight gain, including how we feel about ourselves. But that's a place that I recommend starting and then listening to my podcast episodes with Dr. Simon, because he also recommends sex toys. He recommends outer course, which is a term that he refers to a lot as opposed to intercourse. Vaginal dryness plays a big role in it too, right? So
Mhm.
perhaps vaginal estrogen or DHEA, that could help as well with the dryness and then, the pain in the vaginal area in the vagina, right, when you're having sex. So a
Yeah.
lot of different contributing factors, but he gives some great tips as well as some medication options if that's what somebody chooses to do.
Okay. Are there supplements being heavily marketed to menopausal women right now that you think women should just be skeptical of? Because there's so many supplements out there and so many, you know.
So yeah, okay. So I love this question. I actually started a supplement company in 2021. So when it comes to supplements, I dive deep into supplements. I am very much in support of supplements. I'm a nutritionist, but I will tell you, you cannot out supplement good poor nutrition. So
Right.
we need to make sure that our nutrition, whatever we do, is that is the foundation. Nutrition, lifestyle, including sleep, including managing stress, exercise, all of that is really important. But I do believe there are certain ingredients in supplement or certain supplements that, as a menopausal woman and perimenopausal women, are non-negotiables. And so let me start there, and then I'll go into then I'll
Yeah,
answer your question.
sure.
So I do believe that we need magnesium. I'm a big fan of magnesium bisglycinate because it helps us sleep, but it also helps to regulate the nervous system. Fiber, omega-3s, vitamin D, vitamin K2, MK7. And now I know there's a lot more women or people talking about creatine, maybe not an everyday thing, but maybe, a few times a week. Creatine is
Mhm.
great, especially on days that you're working out. And if you're having trouble with recovery, it is magic. I know women have also said it helps with brain fog, and now they're looking at it for cognitive health, which is great. And then maybe a collagen. Like there are certain things I feel like are good additions, but I also feel like, yes, women are being marketed a whole bunch of stuff. So I've spoken to women who've like opened up their cupboard and showed me like 100 bottles of things and they don't even know why they're taking it.
Right.
So I come from this standpoint is there's the non-negotiables that I believe we all need because our food just doesn't have the minerals it needs. We're not getting enough fiber like we talked about. Omega-3s are crucial for us. That comes from fish oil or algal oil. We need it for lubrication in our body, but also for brain health. It helps our lymphatic system clean out at night. So these are non-negotiable. Vitamin D can help with energy, mood, immune system, right? Vitamin K is great for it helps calcium get into our bones. So these are things why I feel those are non-negotiables. And then you might have targeted supplements that you want to take. So for example, let's say you're not on hormones, but you have hot flashes and night sweats and you want to take a supplement specifically for that, then yes, I think that's great. But I think that there's a lot of people out there pushing a lot of different supplements. And most of the time, first of all, I'm not a fan of the fad ingredients. Like, I'm just going to say that. But also, I feel like women are taking things but don't know why they're taking it.
What that
And
means,
then they're
sorry to interrupt, but when you say fat ingredients, what do you mean by that? You talking about like ashwagandha, like those kinds of things, or
So, like, I just feel like ingredients that are kind of having their heyday, like, which is a good thing because a lot of them are actually great. And as long as they're backed by research and science, and
yeah,
I think that's terrific. But there are certain things, like, not even necessarily ashwagandha, but like things like you'll see on social media, take more copper to help get rid of your gray hair. But if you're taking too much copper, then you're throwing out zinc.
I
So
got
I feel like the fad, like what goes on social media, which although it's great to help educate us, I just want you to be mindful. I'm not saying don't take it. I'm saying understand why you're taking it and does your body need it?
yeah,
And if you are taking it, be mindful of what some other things that could be throwing other, minerals out of balance. I'm just
right.
giving that as an
Yeah, yeah,
example, right? But
yeah.
there's a lot of things out there that I've gone down, and the reason I come from the standpoint too is I was one of those early adopters. I've been in health and wellness for 26 years. I have tried everything. I love to experiment and take things and try it on myself. But now I want women to be more mindful of what they're putting in their body because our bodies are changing now. And I don't want you to just take things just because you may have heard it, because it's going to help with one thing when you don't know what else it does. So just do your research. That's really what I'm saying is if you're going to take something, do your research to understand, and
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. And I'm not going to mention what they are, the actual ingredients, but I'm going to give you some examples.
Okay.
There are a lot of menopause supplements out there that have 90% of the supplements will have this ingredient in it. Okay. It's not ashwagandha. It's
Yeah.
another ingredient. But when I went down the rabbit hole and I tried this ingredient and I ended up with something called fatty liver. Now it's massilled. It's kind of got renamed. But at the time, I'm like, I don't understand. Why is this happening to me? And then I went down the research. I went down the rabbit hole and I'm like, oh, one of the long-term effects could possibly be a fatty liver. And I'm like,
Ah,
like, so these are things that, and this would never be an ingredient I'd have in any product that I would launch at my company, Morphus. It just
yeah,
wouldn't be. But
yeah.
I'm also very much, our brand is specifically for women in perimenopause and menopause. And I cross my T's, I dot my I's, and I'm always like, okay, what does the research say? What are the long-term effects on us now that we're in perimenopause and menopause? So I just want women to be mindful of that when they're taking ingredients. There's a lot of amazing supplements out there. I'm not going to ever say there aren't. There
Hmm.
are. Just make sure it's backed by science and research, and also make sure they're third party tested. And please, if you have access to the company, which I want you to do, ask questions
Yeah,
because that's the important thing. I want you to have, like, when you buy a Morphus supplement, you have access to me and my team. We will answer your questions.
yeah.
So I think that's an important part of it, especially because now we're going into this whole new phase of life. I just want to make sure you're taking what is good for you and your body.
Hmm. How do you feel about a multivitamin? Is that you think it's
I
kind of
don't
a
feel
waste?
like, yeah, like I don't feel like, again, this is my own personal, advice, like not even advice, my own personal opinion
Yeah.
is I don't personally take a multivitamin. I take certain nutrients that I feel my body needs, but
Hmm.
when it comes to a multivitamin, there are a lot of ingredients, and I just want to make sure that when you're taking something that it has efficacious dosages, right? So in a multivitamin, you might have 50 different ingredients or 25 different ingredients. So are you taking what your body needs, or is it better to take something that is more intentional for what you specifically need right
Right,
now?
right.
So it's a choice, I think. It's just a
Yeah,
personal decision.
yeah, that makes sense.
And then
What?
there's like forms, right? Sorry, there's also forms. Like, do you want to take a methylated, like in a multivitamin, what form of B12 are you using? Is it
Yeah,
methylated? Not. It just gets a little nuanced. And like, what
right.
type is it folate? Is it folic acid? So I feel like unless you're buying a multivitamin that's specifically for women in this phase of life and you know what you're taking and you understand every ingredient, then that
Yeah,
could be an option.
yeah. What are three simple daily habits that make a measurable difference? I mean, I think
So
a
I
lot we
would
put
say
out there.
number one, just look at balancing your blood sugar. It's really important to understand what
Okay.
you're eating, managing your blood sugar, managing your stress, and exercise.
Oh, yeah. But exercise for sure, right?
Yeah.
Stress. I mean, stress is huge, isn't it? I mean,
Huge. It's
yeah,
like
it's a
there's a
game
whole
changer.
chapter. Chapter 6 is on the nervous system.
Yeah. So Andrea, so last question. If a woman is standing in a bookstore right now, exhausted, not feeling like herself, and she picks up your book, what's one thing you want her to walk away knowing that she didn't know before? What's your takeaway?
That she didn't know before. Actually, I was going to say the one thing I'd want her to know is that I see her and I support her and I validate her because a lot of women, including myself, when I was going through it, felt very alone. We feel like we're not really understood. We know 40% of us are being dismissed by our doctors and healthcare providers. So for me, writing this book it's the book I wish I had when I was going through perimenopause and I was in menopause. So I wrote the book I wanted, and it very much bridges the gap between allopathic conventional Western medicine and integrative and natural health. So it bridges that gap because that's how I live my life and that's how what I've been in health and wellness for 26 years, all based on research. There's over 1,500 references in the book, which is why it took me 2 years to write
Wow.
because there was so much research involved.
Yeah.
So I would just want her to know also that how she's feeling is validated. And, if anybody tells her that it's not that it's she's too young to be in menopause or perhaps that it's a natural phase of life, there's nothing she could do, it's not
Yeah.
true. There's a lot you could
Yeah.
do, a lot of takeaways that you can implement right away. You pick up the book, you literally read through it and you're like, oh, I could do that today when I'm eating lunch or dinner, like, and
Yeah.
I don't have to spend money to do it. So to me there's a lot you could do and you don't have to suffer.
And Andrea, you can get your book in Amazon or
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah, you can
Okay.
get it on Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, wherever you're shopping. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It was really nice speaking with you. We'll do this again.
And
And they can follow you on Instagram. Yeah.
At Andrea Donsky and at We Are Morphus and on TikTok. I live on TikTok too.
Okay, perfect. TikTok as well.